regarding the Georgia thing. Donald Trump is being accused of somehow trying to engineer or undo a just election. What he did was make a phone call to the Georgia Secretary of State and said, find me, I think it was 10,700 votes. He didn't say steal them. He said, make sure you've counted all the votes. That's what that term meant. And now.
Thank you. Thank you. It was 11,779. Welcome back, warriors. It's me, Linda B. Thank you all so much for joining me here today. So today I wanted to give you all some Larry Elder. You know, he is the conservative talk show host. We're going to talk about and look at this interview that he's doing that concerns the hush money trial that Donald Trump has to go through right now with the porn star Stormy Daniels. But before we get into it, I want you all to remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, watch the video all the way to the end. Also on Rumble at ChatWithMeLindaB, all one word. Also, I've met my 20,000 subscriber goal this month, and my next goal is 30,000 subscribers by the end of May. Thank you all so much for your support. It really means a lot. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. So right now in this interview, Larry Elder is talking about soft on crime laws, most notably in California. And he's also talking about this hush money trial with former President Donald Trump.
Well, MakeAJustAgain.org is designed to expose these soft on crime, George Soros-backed DAs, and these brain-dead soft on crime policies that masquerade as criminal justice reform. They're allowing bad guys to roam on the streets and harm innocent individuals. We've got people like George Gascon here in LA County. You've got people like Alvin Bragg in Manhattan, somebody named Larry Krasner in Philadelphia, all of whom got in because of George Soros-backed money, or the kind of money that's sympathetic to George Soros' ideas, which are basically that the criminal justice system is inherently racist. Cops are targeting Black people just because they're Black. And by the way, bad guys really are victims of society, as opposed to people who are to be held up for the crime they commit. Also talking about some of these soft on crime policies like cashless bail, like Proposition 47 and 57 in California that lowered all sorts of categories of crime from violent offenses to non-violent offenses. I kid you not, after Proposition 57, rape of an intoxicated victim is now considered to be a non-violent offense. Serial arson, non-violent offense. Assault of a police officer, non-violent offense. And what it's done is allowed bad guys to be on the streets longer, bad guys not to suffer the consequences of what they've done. And the people that are disproportionately hurt by this are the very Black and brown people living in the inner city that people on the left purport to care about.
Larry, I'm sure you've...
This is, in my mind, insanity. Proposition 57 in California, which is what Larry Elder was just talking about, actually lowers these crimes from being felonies, whether it's rape, assaulting a police officer. It gives them early parole. That is not even sane thinking. That is not sane thinking. Crime in California has taken on new highs, and these left policies masquerading, like he said, as prison reform, criminal justice reform. It's not reform. You're just letting criminals out on the street. Even of minors. Are we really going down this road, California? The P word, minors? This world has gone and sunk to new lows, and it appears California, the state of California, is leading the way.
Seen reports of this, but I had a conversation a few weeks ago about the videos going viral on TikTok of women in New York getting punched by random men. And I was talking to a public defender in Manhattan, and she said that bail reform actually makes the city more safe. What's your response to that?
Bail reform makes the city more safe. Allowing bad guys to be on the streets who wouldn't be on the streets so they can reoffend makes things more safe. I don't get it. That's the kind of thinking behind these soft on crime George Soros-backed DAs. They really believe that if you don't hold people accountable, somehow crime goes down. You know, criminals may be criminals, but they're not stupid. If you make it more likely that somebody is not going to be arrested, more likely somebody's not going to be convicted, more likely that someone's not going to be incarcerated, crime will go up. They may be bad guys, but they're not stupid. It's real simple.
According to statistics, crime and violent crime has gone down year over year, according to the FBI. Do you think that crime in America, that it's rising, that it's increasing, is a perception problem opposed to reality?
I do not. Take Philadelphia. In the last few years, the homicide rate is probably about 50% what it was before. And I got to tell you, a lot of people are simply not calling in crimes when they're committed because they don't believe the police are going to help them. They believe the bad guys are not going to be held accountable. So crime is underreported. There's no question in the last few years, crime in places like New York, Chicago, LA, are in fact up. What they do is they take 1 year where it's gone down from the year before, and they tell you that the crime has gone down. Look at a year like 2018 or 2019, and look at where crime is now in many of these cities, and you will find that they are in fact up.
And that's what, I see a lot of left-leaning entities always playing funny with the numbers, They pick something from the past that it may have gone down just a little, and they say, oh, it's gone down. But if you look at the trend overall, it has not gone down. I remember when Biden, Jim Crow Joe, said that jobs have been restored. That's because they were already down pre-pandemic. So the people were just regaining what they'd already lost. Always playing funny with the numbers.
The murder rate, the homicide rate, rather, in the United States increased by 30% in 2020. Was there a crime problem then when Donald Trump was president?
Well, it increased for all sorts of reasons, including COVID. But yeah, there was a crime problem when Donald Trump was president. I'll tell you what drives much of the crime in this country, Brittany. It is what I call the epidemic of fatherlessness. 70% of Black kids enter the world without a father in the home, married to the mother. Nearly 50% of Hispanic kids do. About 25% of white kids do, which was the same percentage as was the case with Blacks back in 1965. What happened in 65 is we launched a so-called war on poverty. Lyndon Johnson did. And since then, we've incentivized women to marry the government and incentivize men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. And the stats are clear. Even Barack Obama once quoted them. If you're raised without a father in the home, you're 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. The question is, what are we going to do about it? But these are what are some of the things that are driving the crime. Plus, the police are pulling back. It's called the Ferguson effect or the George Floyd effect, following the so-called protests of May of 2020 that lasted for about 4 or 5 months. 25 people were killed, about 2,000 police officers were injured, about $2 billion in property damage, and as a result, cops are pulling back. And as a result, even though you're finding categories of crime going up, what's going down are arrests. Part of it is because cops are not engaging in proactive policing, and part of it is that New York, LA, Chicago, they are understaffed, undermanned. Officers are retiring early, are transferring, and it's very difficult to recruit people to a department when it's been maligned and systemically racist. So all of these things kind of go together.
And I want to just say that the left, I just don't, how they think is just a mess to me. How is it that you could be soft on crime and things get better? Silly. Criminals, like he said, aren't stupid. If they see that you're not going to send them to prison or have cashless bail, lower felonies down to misdemeanors, of course they're going to commit more crime. They're more incentivized to do so. You need to be tougher on crime, not overly tough, where you give someone like a murder sentence for something that's non-violent, that's their first offense or something. But California, with this Proposition 57, these are serious crimes. And plus, police departments, like he said, are understaffed. Remember that whole defund the police, all of that stuff with BLM. It was just a whole bunch of craziness a few years ago. It looks like it may have settled down a little bit, but the crime is still high. Crime is disproportionately high, and all the left does is point the fingers at the Republicans, but the Republicans or people on the right, conservatives, are actually tougher on crime, which has a tendency to make people back up or think about what they're doing. But if you're soft on crime, it's not going to help. It's not going to help. You all give me your comments on it. But California, that is insane. And all the people coming across the border illegally and all the issues that they bring.
Larry, where is this money going once you raise it for the PAC?
Well, it's going to, as I said, to create awareness for articles that are going to be put in all sorts of publications, and eventually to support candidates that are opposing some of these soft on crime, George Soros type backed DAs.
And how much money have you raised so far?
I haven't even looked. We just now started it probably about maybe a week, 10 days ago. So I really haven't really started. We just now started doing interviews. This is a very important interview that we're doing to generate revenue. And again, it's called Make America Just Again.
It's very clear based on this conversation, based on past comments, you don't believe bail reform is the answer here. What is?
The answer is to hold people accountable for the crimes that they commit. As I said earlier, if a bad guy realizes that he's less likely to be arrested, less be convicted, less likely to be incarcerated, crime will go up. Again, they may be criminals, but they're not stupid. Hold people accountable for what they do. I mean, we got people. You mentioned the women in New York being mugged, being struck down. Often, these are people who have had series of crimes, series of things that they've done. They haven't been held accountable. Just last year, my 92-year-old aunt in Cleveland, Aunt Maggie, is going to her church that she's attended for 60 years, carrying her purse and her Bible. Guy pulls out a gun, knocks her to the ground, takes her purse, takes her Bible. Fortunately, it was captured on the video camera by the church. They arrested the guy. He'd been in prison 2 times before, one time for 8 years, one time for 5 years. And within about 4 weeks or so of mugging my aunt, he'd done the same thing to 2 other women, same MO, women getting out of her car, walking to church, and he mugged her. He never should have been out on the streets.
Don't tell me this man stole her Bible too. This is a 90-something-year-old woman trying to worship the Lord. He stole the Bible. Oh, I guess he probably saying, maybe I need Jesus, but that's not how you get him, by stealing. Thou shalt not steal. Soft on crime. That is silly. And back in the day, and you all can attest to this, all of you can, that you've heard that phrase, snitches get stitches. A lot of people are afraid to report crime, as he mentioned here. So just because all stats are based on reports. So if no one reports anything, well, it's not reported and it doesn't go into the crime numbers. So you're not getting an accurate picture of crime. You're just not, because people are getting away with things and people are afraid that if they say something, that they will get in trouble, that their lives and the lives of their family members are endangered. So that is what we have to get out of is, and I know it's difficult because you're feeling like these people are going to come after me. I got enough problems. I don't need to add this to it. But it's not right to let criminals go free or to just pat them on the wrist or just pat them on the back of their hand and let them go out again. And they're typically people who are just criminal minded are repeat offenders. So you might be, they thinking like taxpayers don't have to pay for housing all these criminals or all these people in these prisons. Well, we don't want to pay with them getting out and committing crimes like murder and all sorts of other things. That doesn't even make logical sense.
Before we continue the conversation, is your aunt okay?
She is okay. She now walks with a cane. She can no longer drive by herself. She was driving by herself. And also she spent a great deal of money on security on her home because he took her purse before they caught him. She had no idea whether or not he was going to use the information in the purse to come to her house and break in and do whatever. So for all these reasons, she's very, very rattled right now, and she no longer has the same kind of sense of serenity that she did before.
As you know, former President Donald Trump is facing legal hurdles in New York City. He's been in a Manhattan courtroom over the past week. Would any of the money you raised for the PAC go to him and his legal troubles?
It would go more broadly to the whole notion of a two-tiered system of justice, which is what I believe has happened with Donald Trump, and in general with conservatives. Hunter Biden is almost got a slap on the wrist, despite the gun charges and the income tax evasion charges. I think there's a two-tier system of justice. So we're going to be calling attention to that. I don't believe Donald Trump should be facing any charges whatsoever. All he did was to describe the payments as legal expenses. Hillary and the DNC paid for the so-called Steele dossier, attributed it to legal expenses. The FEC gave them a fine. The DOJ did not criminally prosecute them. Donald Trump didn't even get a Federal Election Commission fine for the alleged payments to his alleged mistress, and he certainly wasn't prosecuted criminally. And Alvin Bragg campaigned to get Donald Trump. I believe that's a violation of your canons of ethics as a prosecutor to campaign to get somebody. And he's another example of what I consider to be the two-tiered system of justice.
You all give me your thoughts on this right here, what I'm about to say. I've said this in other videos of why I believe the Democrats have a tendency to use Black politicians to go after Donald Trump. Look at it. Look at it. He just mentioned Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, Fonnie Willis, all of them Black. What do you feel is the reason why these particular people are being used? I really want you to tell me what you think as to why they are all Black. I know what I think. I've already said it in my other videos, because the Democratic Party is really a God-hating, America-hating party. And they really have a particular disdain for Black people. They always have. No party switch. No, just the desires of the voters changed, but the parties did not switch.
When he first came into the office, by the way, he declined to pursue the charges against Donald Trump. One of his assistants resigned, wrote a book calling out Alvin Bragg for shirking his responsibility, and then all of a sudden Alvin Bragg then decided to go after Donald Trump when he decided not to do it after he got into office. It's extremely unfair, and it's preventing him, of course, from being on the campaign trail.
You said you don't believe he should have been charged whatsoever. As you know, since he announced he was running for president, he's been charged 91 times with 4 indictments. Do you think he's completely innocent here with all of those charges, or do you think he's being unfairly targeted?
I think he's being unfairly targeted with all of them. Let's take the Florida one. As you know, Joe Biden had documents in more places than Donald Trump did, including, and this is very important, documents that he apparently got when he was in the Senate from a SCIF, a secured unit where you're not supposed to take anything in or take anything out. And Joe Biden had documents in his possession from when he was a senator. Clearly a violation of the Espionage Act. What did the special counsel say? Well, he's an elderly man with a poor memory, so nothing happened to him. Regarding the Georgia thing, Donald Trump is being accused of somehow trying to engineer or undo a just election. What he did was make a phone call to the Georgia Secretary of State and said, find me, I think it was 10,700 votes. He didn't say steal them. He said, make sure you've counted all the votes. That's what that term meant. And now.
Thank you. Thank you. It was 11,779 or 11,780 votes. He meant, if you take things in context and don't just pull out that one sentence, the same is true when people read the Bible. They take out one line and don't read the scriptures and verses before and after, or the chapter before and after, to put everything in context. Donald Trump had his attorneys on that phone call. It was a phone call that wasn't sneaky with just Donald Trump calling Brad Raffensperger. It wasn't like that. Trump had his lawyers with him on that call. Everything was on the up and up. And he did not mean go steal. He said find, which means find the votes that you did not count that are rightfully mine. That is what that meant. And y'all know that's what that meant. They always twist and turn everything when it comes to Donald Trump. And look at what they've done, and don't get in trouble for doing it. Come on. Jim Crow Joe had some documents while he was senator. They're not protected under the Presidential Records Act. Really? But he's elderly. He's an old man. Okay.
Now Donald Trump facing criminal charges for that. Absolutely, completely, totally outrageous. And regarding January 6th, the man has not been charged with insurrection, nor, by the way, have any of the other hundreds of people that participated in that riot been charged with insurrection, let alone been convicted of it. Yet Donald Trump somehow is facing charges of trying to overthrow an election because of what happened on January 6th. The man gave a speech and he said, I want you to, quote, peacefully and patriotically go and make your voices heard. And whenever I read newspapers about this or watch CNN or MSNBC, they omit the peaceful and patriotic part and talk about him saying, go and fight like hell, which is just standard political rhetoric. So I think that one is unfair as well. I think all of them are unfair and would not be brought if Donald Trump were not the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party for 2024.
New York is a blue state, Georgia less so. So do you think this is just a progressive state problem because we are seeing him charged in Georgia?
Well, I think it's, again, a two-tier system of justice problem. Fani Lewis, as was the case with Letitia James, the AG of New York, as was the case with Alvin Bragg, the DA of Manhattan, all ran promising to get Donald Trump. Again, I don't think that's what prosecutors are supposed to do. Prosecutors are supposed to do justice, and they're supposed to focus their time and attention trying to get people. It's just completely improper. And it seems to me the ABA, the American Bar Association, ought to be saying something about their, in my opinion, violation of their canons of ethics.
I am curious, Donald Trump was slapped with a gag order in his New York trial. What do you think of that?
Unfair. Michael Cohen, who apparently is going to testify, is on CNN, been on CNN a couple times since the trial has started, talking about what a bad guy Donald Trump is, but Donald Trump can't respond. I think it's unfair. And I think as you and I, around this time, a judge right now is looking at whether or not the gag order is improper. And I have a good feeling it's going to be lifted. I think it's unfair. I think it's a violation of his First Amendment. Even the what's that left-wing organization? Not American Bar Association. Even the ACLU said that it was unfair and a violation of his First Amendment rights.
Do you think he's doing any favors with his conduct, though? He was accused of violating it, I believe, over 10 times now. Would you wish that he maybe stopped posting on Truth Social, or do you think that matters?
You're not going to take the Trump out of Trump. That's true in what he is. I still believe it is unfair. There are lots of things that Donald Trump has said over the last several years that I, Larry Elder, would not have said. On the other hand, if Donald Trump were not bold and brash the way he is, he would not be president. Most of us thought he would never have a chance of winning, at least at first. And apparently his close friends advised him not to even run when he decided to run. So this is a guy who has a healthy disrespect for so-called experts. And that's one of the reasons he is who he is. I don't think you can take the Trump out of Trump.
The Make
I do,
America.
however, I will say one thing. I've heard Donald Trump say that he intends to testify on his own behalf. I think that would be ill-advised. I'm a trial lawyer when I practice law. And once you sit there, you open yourself up for all sorts of lines of cross-examination. So I think he'd be well-advised. I'm sure his lawyers are advising him not to take the stand, to let Alvin Bragg make his case. And then hopefully at least one or more juror will say, you've not committed any kind of crime. And if he gets convicted, I believe it'll be overturned on appeal.
The Make America Just Again PAC is obviously a play on words of Donald Trump's slogan, Make America Great Again. Does he know about your PAC? And if so, has he commented?
No, not to my knowledge. I met with him about 6 weeks ago in Mar-a-Lago. We had a long discussion, but I didn't bring up the PAC at the time, so I'm not even sure he knows about it. He kind of has his hands full, Brittany.
I can imagine it. He could be still in court, depending on, I haven't been able to check yet since our conversation started, but what is next for the PAC?
Well, next for the PAC, as I said, is to raise money to raise awareness of what's going on with all these soft on crime DAs, and to recommend, for example, that states do what Georgia did recently. Georgia legislatures set up a commission to investigate DAs that are not doing their jobs. The governor signed it, and the Democrats, of course, filed a lawsuit to hold it up. But I'm recommending that every state does set up a commission of retired judges, retired DAs, so they can hear complaints from citizens who've been injured or who have loved ones who've been injured by people who are on the streets who otherwise should not be on the streets, and can make recommendations for the removal of these DAs who are not doing their jobs.
Larry Elder, per usual, thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, they need to do that. And I'm happy to hear that my state that I live in is doing that. If the DA is not doing their job, they need to be removed. Fonnie Willis, because too much focus is on getting a political opponent. When you have a lot of crime in these cities, New York and Atlanta, they're crime ridden. They really are. And now you've got Alvin Bragg and Fonnie Willis, who are DAs going after a former president. And you've got so much crime in those cities. You've got murders, you've got rapes, you've got some of everything going on. And they're spending all their time and resources, apparently, it appears that they are, on chasing something that is not even true. It's not true. All the things that Donald Trump is being accused of, he actually did not do. There was no insurrection. We know that. Setup. Yeah, you all can see some of my videos, particularly on Rumble, because free speech on Rumble. I do not post the same videos on, there are a few of the same videos on both YouTube and Rumble, but primarily Rumble has different videos. So that will give you more value than the same exact videos being on both platforms. So yes, so we see that there is a two-tier justice system. If Donald Trump was not running, they would not be going after him. So the Democratic Party is shaking in their boots right now. They are so scared. They are about to wet their pants. No, seriously, they're going, oh, wow. And now Donald Trump is going through New York getting a hero's welcome. People are shouting in New York City, Trump, 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 USA, 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 and 4 more years, 4 more years. What are they going to do about that? Because people are beginning to see right through this, right through it. This is just election interference. They're afraid. They're scared. Sugar honey iced tea list. Sorry, I can't say that other word. But yeah, they're shaking. They don't know what to do. They're looking at it going, this stuff is not working. What are we going to do? And they're primarily afraid because they're afraid that Donald Trump is going to use legal resources to go after them. Because honestly, what a lot of the Dems, the Democratic politicians have done, they actually did things that were very illegal. And they're trying to project off onto Donald Trump, whereas he did not do those things, but they did. We've got all this stuff that Hillary did. Obama. Yes, Biden's son that Biden knew about. Shell companies in that other country that starts with a U. All that money going supposedly to that other country that starts with a U, being funneled through shell companies, turning right back around, doing a U-turn into the bank accounts of various Biden family members. Yes, that is correct. So what they're doing is truly criminal. And all they can do is try to make it so that Donald Trump is too busy in court, too busy fighting these battles to campaign. They try to drain him of his resources, tire him out. And you have to ask yourself, what else are they going to try and do? But you know what? The prayers of the righteous will prevail. God is in control. You all tell me what you think about that question I had. Why is the Democratic Party using Black DAs and a Black Attorney General, all with the sole purpose of going after former President Donald John Trump? Well, that's it for today's video. You all be blessed. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. As I always say, march on, warriors.